All right, we're looking at answers for review for quiz 15. Problem number 1, part A, wants us to write the equation of a tangent line at the point where t equals 0. And if you go back up into the prompt, it says at t equals 0 hours, the temperature is 3 degrees. So there's my point I'm going to use when I write the equation of my tangent line. So y minus my y value and x minus my x value. So my y value is 3, my x value is 0. Then we need the slope. To get the slope, we go back up to my derivative, because that's where we get slope from. So we need to plug in 0 for t and 3 for w. So we do that. Cosine of 0 is 1. 1 times 3 gives me 3. And then I have 2 times 3 on the bottom, which gives me 6. So that means my slope is 1/2. So we plug it in. Y minus 3 equals 1/2. X minus 0 is my tangent line. Then we want to use that to approximate our temperature at 0.4. So I plug 0.4 in for x. 1/2 times 0.4 gives me 0.2. Add the 3 over, I end up with 3.2. So at the time 0.4 hours, our temperature is approximately 3.2 degrees Celsius. Then we want to find a particular solution. So we just want to solve the differential equation. So first thing I want to do is separate. Again, remember that I like the coefficients to stay on the right side. So the only thing I want to move to the left side is w. On the right side, I have 3/2 and cosine. Integrate w, we get 1/2 w squared. 3/2 is a coefficient, so it stays. Integrate cosine, we get sine, and then don't forget your plus c. Plug in the initial condition, which is 0 and 3. So I plug 3 in for w. I plug 0 in for t. So 3 squared is 9. 9 times 1/2 gives me 9/2. Sine of 0, as we all know, is 0. So that means c is 9/2. Plug my c back in, and now I want to solve for w. Multiply by 2 cancels out all the 2's, and then take the square root. Remember, you have to figure out whether or not you want the plus or the minus. In this case, when I plug in 0, I have to get a positive 3. So that means I need to have a positive in front of my radical. Number 2, again, we're writing the equation of a tangent line. They have given me the point 0, 91. So y minus my y value, x minus my x value. I need to find my slope. To get my slope, I plug back into the derivative. So the only thing I can plug into the derivative is 91 for h. So 91 minus 27 gives me 64. And negative 1/4 times 64 gives me negative 16. So negative 16 is my slope. My equation is y minus 91 equals negative 16 times x minus 0. And we want to use that to approximate the temperature of the potato at t equals 3. So I plug 3 in. 3 times 16, that gives me negative 48. Add the 91 over, gives me 43. So at t equals 3, my temperature is approximately 43 degrees Celsius. And then for part B, we want to separate and integrate. So I need to move the g minus 27 to the 2/3 to the other side. Since we have an exponent other than 1, that means we want to move it to the top by making it negative. So I integrate. So negative 2/3 plus 1 gives me 1/3. Divide by 1/3, same thing as multiplying by 3. On the right side, integrating a negative, which gives me negative t plus c. Plug in my initial condition of 0 and 91. So 91 over here gives me 64 inside. Cube root of 64 is 4. 4 times 3 gives me 12. Plug in 0 for t, just leaves me with c on this side. So that means c is 12. Plug in 12 for c here. Solve for g. So I divide by 3. I cube both sides. I went ahead and cubed my denominator. If you cube 3, we get 27, and then add 27 over. There is my solution. Then it wants me to use that to find the potato's temperature at 3. So at 3, we plug in. So that gives me negative 3 plus 12, which is 9. 9 cubed divided by 27 gives me 27. 27 plus 27 equals 54. So my estimate with the tangent line was 43 degrees Celsius, and then with the actual function, we got 54 for the temperature. 3, Again, another tangent line. Hopefully you're picking up that it's pretty important that you can write the equation of a tangent line. So my point is 2, 3. So y minus 3, x minus 2, figure out my slope. So I need to plug into my derivative. Plug 3 in for y, gives me 9 up top. Plug 2 in for x, gives me 1 on the bottom. 9 divided by 1 gives me 9. So my slope is 9. And then we want to approximate at 2.1. So I plug in 2.1. 2.1 minus 2 gives me 0.1 times 9 gives me 0.9. Add the 3 gives me 3.9. So f of 2.1 is approximately 3.9. Okay, then we're going to solve it. So I need to divide the y squared over. Again, my exponent is something other than 1. So we want to move it to the top. So that's why I have y to the negative 2. On the right side, I have 1 over x minus 1. Integrate y to the negative 2, we get 1 over y. Integrate 1 over x minus 1, we get the natural log, the absolute value of x minus 1. And don't forget about your plus c. All right, plug in the initial condition. So 3 for y, 2 for x. So 2 minus 1 gives me 1. Natural log of 1, as we know, is 0. So that means c equals negative 1/3. Plug in my c and then solve for y. So all I have to do to solve for y here is switch these two. We get y equals negative 1 over the natural log of the absolute value of x minus 1 minus 1/3. So there are the answers for 1, 2, and 3 on review for quiz 15.